The lease paperwork is sitting on your kitchen table on a Wednesday night, and it looks exactly like a decision you've already made. The salesman emailed it over at 6:14 p.m. with a subject line that says ready when you are and a monthly figure of $1,097, which the dealership rounds down to just over $1,000 a month. The way people round things down when they need the number to feel smaller than it is. You've been thinking about this car for 4 months. Not obsessively, not in the way that embarrasses you, just in the background, the way a reasonable person thinks about a reasonable reward for an unreasonable amount of work. You are 31 years old. You have been grinding for 6 years. The consulting business you built from a spare bedroom and a second-hand monitor is finally producing real money. Not generational money, not retired tomorrow money, but real monthly growing money. The kind that makes $1,000 a month feel like a rounding error. The salesman is not wrong that you can afford it. You ran the numbers. You can afford it the way you can afford a lot of things you've decided not to buy. Technically, comfortably, easily. You close the laptop, not because of discipline, not because of some personal finance podcast you listened to on a Tuesday run, not because someone told you not to. You close it because of a number you did in your head while the salesman was still talking, somewhere between the part about the heated steering wheel and the part about the lease buyout option. You took $1,100 and you multiplied it. Not dramatically, not across 40 years compounded at 10%, just quietly, the way someone does math when they're standing in a room and the room doesn't know what they're thinking. $1,100 a month, $13,200 a year. Over 5 years, $66,000 in lease payments for a car you would not own at the end. A car that would have 60,000 miles on it, and a return fee for anything that scratched wrong in a parking lot. $66,000 leaving your life in exchange for a badge on a hood and a sound system, and the specific feeling of pulling into a parking garage in a way that turns 1 or 2 heads. You already know what the alternative looks like because you've been building it for 3 years without telling anyone. $1,100 a month going somewhere else. Not dramatically somewhere else, just a brokerage account, a Roth IRA, a small position in a REIT that pays distributions quarterly. Money moving into things that produce more money quietly, without a lease agreement and without a return clause and without a $3,500 disposition fee if you put the wrong miles on it. You drive home in your 2017 Honda CR-V with 74,000 miles on it and a coffee stain on the passenger seat from a Tuesday in March you no longer remember. Nobody looks at it in the parking garage. That's the whole point. The thing nobody explains about the Lambo decision, or any version of it, the Porsche version, the Benz version, the luxury SUV version with the panoramic roof and the massage seats, is that the decision isn't really about the car. The car is just where the conversation surfaces. The actual decision is about what you believe money is for and who you're performing your life for and whether those two things are the same person. You grew up watching your uncle drive a car he couldn't afford. Not a Lamborghini, this was a suburb outside Columbus, not Dubai, just a leased Cadillac with payments that bled into his credit cards and his credit cards into his second job and his second job into a marriage that got very quiet around year 4 and never fully recovered its volume. Nobody connected those things directly. The car wasn't the problem. The car was just the first domino in a sequence that looked unrelated until it wasn't. You were 12 and you were watching and you didn't have language for what you were seeing, but the image stayed. The specific image of a man who looked like he had more than he did and spent 20 years making it true by spending down everything he actually had. You are not your uncle, you don't even drive a Cadillac, but the mechanism is identical at any price point, and you understood that before the salesman finished his pitch, which is why you let him finish and then said you'd think about it and then drove home in the CR-V and closed the laptop. Month 1 of not leasing the Lamborghini feels like nothing. That's the honest answer and nobody tells you that part. There is no moment of satisfaction. There is no feeling of rightness settling over you like a financial blessing. There is just your regular life, your regular car, your regular Tuesday, and $1,100 that moved into a brokerage account 2 days after your direct deposit cleared without asking your permission or making a sound. Month 3, your friend Ryan takes delivery of a matte black G-Wagon. He posts a video of the key fob in his hand, standing in the dealership parking lot in good light. It gets 412 likes by the time you see it, which is the Tuesday after he posted it, because you don't check Instagram with any regularity anymore. Another decision nobody congratulated you for. You double tap the photo because Ryan is a good person who works hard, and the car looks genuinely excellent. You close the app. Your brokerage account does not care about Ryan's G-Wagon, it just keeps compounding. What's actually happening underneath the surface of your ordinary life during this period is something that has no visual equivalent, no parking lot moment, no good light. Your $1,100 a month is going into 3 places in a ratio you set up once and haven't adjusted since, because the best financial systems are the ones that run without your daily attention. 40% into a Roth IRA maxed annually, sitting in a low-cost total market index fund that owns a small piece of every significant company in America and charges you 0.03% a year to do it. 40% into a taxable brokerage account split between the same index fund and a REIT index with a current yield of around 4.1%, distributions reinvested automatically. 20% into a high-yield savings account earning 4.7% annually, not because savings accounts build wealth, but because liquidity is a tool and you've watched enough people get destroyed by illiquid positions in bad months to respect what cash can do when the floor drops out. None of this is on Instagram. None of this has a sound when it happens. It is fully, completely invisible to everyone in your life, including most people who consider themselves close to you. Your accountant knows. The brokerage platform knows. That's essentially the entire list. Year 2, the CRV hits 91,000 miles and needs a water pump and a set of rear brake pads. You take it to a mechanic 3 miles from your house who has been operating out of the same building since 1987. He charges you $640 for everything. You pay it without blinking because $640 is not a number that moves anything in your life anymore, which is a fact you hold quietly while you wait in the plastic chair in his waiting room watching a talk show with the volume too low to hear. The CRV is fixed. You drive it home. The $1,100 has already moved for the month. The math has not stopped running. This is the part that compounds invisibly for a long time before it becomes visible at all. Month 1, $1,100 invested. Month 12, $13,200 working. Month 24, $26,400 plus the returns on the first year, which have been quietly accruing without ceremony or notification beyond a number on a screen you check once a week the way you check the weather. You are not watching it daily. Daily watching doesn't make it grow faster. It just makes you anxious about movement that was always going to happen. By the end of year 2, your investment accounts across all 3 buckets are sitting at a combined value of just over $31,000. Not because of market genius, not because you picked the right stocks, because you picked no stocks. You picked everything. You own the whole market in a low-cost wrapper and you let time do the arithmetic. The number is $31,000. The Lambo lease at the same point would have cost you $26,400 in payments and you would own nothing. The car would have 24,000 miles on it, and you'd have a year left before you'd have to either return it or re-up into another payment cycle that resets the clock. Somewhere in this same period, Ryan mentions that the G-Wagon payments are a lot more than I expected them to be, which is a sentence that means something specific in the language of people who leased more car than the math wanted them to. He's not struggling. Ryan is fine. But the payments are a weight he carries into every month whether the month cooperates or not, and you've watched him turn down 2 vacations and 1 investment opportunity because the fixed costs of his life don't leave room for the variable decisions. The G-Wagon looks exactly the same from the outside. That's how it works. Year 3, your brokerage sends you a quarterly statement that you open on a Sunday morning with coffee. The portfolio across all 3 accounts has crossed $52,000. Not $52,000 you earned this year, $52,000 total value, contributions plus compounding plus distributions reinvested over 36 months of ordinary Tuesdays. The market did what the market does, which is to say it went up and then down and then up again. And you did not sell anything during the down part because you decided in advance that you wouldn't and automated your system, so that the decision didn't require willpower in the moment, only setup. You look at the number for a while. You finish the coffee. The CRV is in the driveway with 104,000 miles on it and a new water pump, and it starts every morning without complaint. Nothing about your life looks different from the outside. That's year 3, then year 4 arrives and does what year 4 does when you've been running a quiet, patient system correctly for 36 consecutive months. The compounding starts to get loud, not publicly loud, privately, mathematically, irreversibly loud. The portfolio hits $79,000 in month 41 because the contributions have been consistent, and the index has had a good 18 months, and the REIT distributions have been reinvesting into more shares that generate more distributions that generate more shares, a wheel that nobody installed a brake on. By month 48, you're at $96,000 and the monthly contribution of $1,100 is now smaller than what the portfolio generated on its own in 4 of the last 6 months. Read that again? The money is making more money than you are putting in. Not every month, but in 4 of the last 6, your $1,100 contribution was smaller than the portfolio's own monthly return. You are not a passive participant in this anymore. You built something that has started to move under its own weight. The car you didn't lease is now a portfolio that generates income without your labor, without your attention, without you showing up to anything or performing anything for anyone. The Lambo lease would have ended at month 36 with a return appointment and a disposition fee, and a conversation about whether you wanted to roll into a new lease or buy the car out at a residual value that was always going to be higher than the market would pay for the same mileage elsewhere. The money would be gone. Fully, completely, not coming back, gone. $39,600 in payments over 3 years, and a car sitting in a dealership lot being cleaned for the next person. Instead, you have $79,000 working. That number will double approximately every 7 years at historical average returns without you adding another dollar, which means the decision you made on a Wednesday night in your kitchen when you closed the laptop is still making money for you a decade from now, 2 decades from now, in months you haven't lived yet, in a version of your life you can't see from here, but that is already structurally different because of what you didn't sign. Year 5, someone at a dinner party asks what you drive. You tell them. A 2017 Honda CR-V. They nod the way people nod when the answer is smaller than they expected, and they're trying not to let that register on their face. You watch the nod. You've gotten good at watching it. There's a version of this moment where you tell them what the alternative cost and what you built instead, and watch their face reorganize itself. You never take that version. Not because you're above it, because the story belongs to you, and explaining it makes it smaller somehow, turns it into a performance of restraint instead of an actual one. You're 5 years past the Wednesday night you closed the laptop. Your investment accounts across all 3 buckets sit at $134,000, not counting your retirement accounts from earlier in your career, just the $1,100 per month you redirected from a car you didn't lease into assets that kept compounding while you were living your ordinary life. $134,000 that started as lease payments you declined. $134,000 working, growing, generating income that reinvests into more income, running a system you set up once and haven't needed to maintain daily because good systems don't need daily maintenance. The CR-V is at 127,000 miles. It needs a timing belt this spring. The mechanic says $800, maybe $900 depending on the tensioners. You say fine, you drive it home. The $1,100 has already moved for the month. Here's what the Lambo actually cost the people who leased it, not in monthly payments, not in total outlay, but in opportunity. The average exotic car lease runs between $1,800 and $3,200 a month depending on the model and terms. Even at the conservative $1,100 figure of this story, over 5 years at a 9% average annual return, you're looking at roughly $81,000 in foregone portfolio growth. Not including the lease payments themselves. Add the payments, you're past $145,000 in combined cost of the decision. That number doesn't live in a visible place. It doesn't show up on a bank statement or a credit report. It lives in the portfolio that doesn't exist, the compounding that never started, the wheel that nobody built because the $1,100 went somewhere it couldn't grow. Nobody is going to tell you this at the dealership. The dealership is not in the business of telling you what the monthly payment becomes if it compounds instead of leases. That's not the room you're in when you're standing under the showroom lights with the key fob in your hand and the salesman is talking about the heated steering wheel. You are the only person who can do that math in that room, and the math is quiet. It doesn't have a sound system. It doesn't turn heads in a parking garage. It doesn't photograph well in good light. It just runs, month after month, Tuesday after Tuesday, in the background of an ordinary life that looks smaller than it is from the outside and larger than almost anything you've seen from the inside. The CR-V starts every morning. The portfolio runs every night. Neither of them need you to watch. That's the whole story. That's the $1,100.